Now, this decision that we impose on an implementation, I can see having two main parts. Now, before I talk about the parts, I really have to note that we're really bad at naming things in the world of software. We like to use the same word over and over again and have it have different meanings. So be very careful as we talk about these parts, because I have to use words that also have other meanings as well. So let's take a look at the first part. The first part is called the function, or the functional part. Now, this word, again, is that kind of word that has lots of little meanings. And so we got to be really careful about it. And one of the things we think about when we hear this word are things like functionality, which we often mean as features, things that we build to solve some problem. Like spell checking is a feature. Well, when we use this word for requirements, we don't actually mean that. We mean something different. We mean actions to take, information to remember, or rules to enforce. That is, what's it going to do, what kind of things I have to recall later on, and what business policies do I want to make sure my software is, or my solution, however it is actually enforcing. So action to take, information, and rules to enforce. That's the function part. And so if I was to ask you, what's the functional requirement of a toaster? You might say, well, the function of a toaster is to make toast. And that would be the function part. Let's just say I have a toaster. And I go in and I buy a toaster at a store, and I put 2 slices of bread into it, and 3 minutes later it come out 2 wonderfully brown pieces of toast. Is it functionally correct? Well, we'd have to say yes. It made toast. So I go to another store, and I buy a toaster, and I put 2 slices of bread in, and then 3.5 weeks later come out 2 wonderfully brown pieces of toast. Is it functionally correct? Well, actually, we have to say yes again, because it made toast. However, if we ask, is it useful? We would have to say no. We're dead of toast starvation, right? We waited way too long for that toast. So that function itself, that make toast, is incomplete. There's something missing here. Something that says, wow, I could meet this function and make something completely useless. I can make toast that no one wants, right? So there's something missing here. Things like how fast it's going to make toast, or how safe it is making toast, or how brown. And I have to tell you, there's some people I know who for some reason believe any piece of warm bread, no matter how wompy, is toast. I believe you need a certain level of stiffness and brownness to the bread to be toast. So how brown is one of those areas I care about. And even the throughput. I have 3 daughters. A 2-slice toaster is really not going to work for me, right? I need something that moves toast through in a rapid pace. So throughput's a big deal, right? And all these talk about how well I do it. So in order to have a complete requirement, yeah, I have the function part, I have to have this how well part. And all those kind of things like how fast, how brown, we came up with a name. Well, we thought about it, we came up with a name, and the name we came up with is non-function, not the function. One of the stupidest names we could possibly come up with, right? Because if the function is important, these must be the not important. In fact, when I look at, and I've seen hundreds of requirements documents from lots and lots of companies, I see lots of function statements and very few non-functions. And so we treat these as if they're not important. And yet, hopefully we'll see in this series of sessions that these are really critical pieces. So, non-function. Other terms you might want to use, aspects, attributes, characteristics. I kind of like characteristics right now. My people, the Robertson and Robertsons who write the books Mastering the Requirements Process call them fit criteria. But whatever you call them, they're the how well parts that says, how do I know that I'm doing that function in a manner such that the person can actually use it in a meaningful way. So a complete requirement becomes a combination of a function and one or more non-functions that says how well. So I actually can produce something that satisfies a real need. Unless you think that's just an Earl thing, all these different authors, the Robertson and Robertson's Mastering the Requirements Process book, Ian Somerville and Pete Sawyer's book, Gaz and Weinberg's Exploring Requirements book, Carl Wieger's Software Requirements book, Tom Gilb's Competitive Engineering book, and even Steve McConnell's Code Complete book. and I have to mention Steve's book. You know what channel you're watching, right? All these books talk about there being both these parts. And I really, if I had to recommend one of these books, I'd have to recommend Steve's book. But if I had to recommend a requirements book, I'd have to recommend the Mastering Requirements Process book, mostly because it has my name in it 4 times, spelled correctly at least 3 times. It also really does a great job of showing that both parts are needed to have complete requirements.